The movie opens with a man's voiceover saying that when you're young, you don't consider the repercussions, you feel invincible. And people tell you all these things about consequences and stuff like that. But there's one thing about the summer. Anything can happen, and in this man's case it did. As Doug enters the city, a view of beachgoers having fun is shown. Looking up from his book while he is reading, he is treated to a stunning view of the beach. His parents bring him into town, and as they unload their belongings, her mother makes a light-hearted remark about whether he has enough books. Their residence is next to a pier where a few crowded boats are docked. When Doug arrives down there, he runs into one of his pals, who informs him about the women that have come and how ludicrous the scenario is and how easily he can get laid. The band performing stops when a man takes out the electronics cord in a bar as the two are approaching it from the dock. A few people boo him, but when he joins the band and begins playing guitar, they cheer. Then, Doug's pal hands him an apron and declares that summer has begun. When Doug gets home, he shouts to let everyone know that he is there, but no one is actually present. He then ascends to his room and is admiring a few pictures there when he notices a new couple has moved in and looks out the window. He attempts to see the wife since he thinks she is lovely, but she enters her home. Elliot and Lena are there. Lena suddenly glances up, startling Doug and making him turn away from the window as he continues to stare at her. Later, he rides his bike outside and manages to see Lena stooping to brush the sand off her shoes. Doug then approaches his friend, and they once more get into a discussion about women. When they hear laughter on the opposite side of the beach, the two move a mattress to an abandoned boat shed. The two then crack open their beers as his friend promises to ensure that he has a fantastic summer. He discovers the neighbors have moved in when he gets home. His father unexpectedly contacts him and drives him to meet the new neighbors. Doug is invited to visit and see Elliot's new yacht. Elliot tells Doug that his father informed him that he knows a lot about boats and that he might even hire him, because it will pay much more than simply mowing lawns. The following day, Elliot goes to look at the yacht and sees Lena returning from a swim. He continues to observe her as she takes a shower. Lena strips off all of her clothing as Doug stares at her non-stop. Suddenly, Elliot enters the room and inquires about the boat. Elliot explains that he might be leaving for a while Doug assures him that the damage is purely cosmetic. The two then talk about Elliot's compensation and decide on $12, but Elliot claims he would have given him $20. Later, while Doug is once more peering out of his windows towards the neighbor's home and observing Lena changing, Elliot enters the room and makes an effort to seduce his wife, prompting Doug to turn away. The guard stops Elliot as he approaches the waterfront the following day and requests that he confirm his identification. Doug approaches Elliot to speak with him and complains to him about how rigorous the guard is. Elliot simply replies, "This is the superior option." Doug asks Elliot how he acquired all of these items while the two are standing on his boat. Elliot replies that it was all made possible by his wealth and good looks. The following day, Elliot sees Lena passing by once more when he hears a scream. Lena is standing outside the car acting as if there is a spider inside when he goes outside to check it out. The spider is removed, and he kills it. Then he fixes the automobile for Lena, but he acts strangely when she gets close to him. He informs his friend about this encounter, who advises him to exercise caution around the spouse because he doesn't appear to be the type of person Doug would want to mess with. Doug encounters Lena as she is relaxing on her porch as he is returning from work. She explains that she's locked herself out of the house and needs his assistance to get back in. She then pleaded with him to keep their conversation private because Elliot had told her to take care of herself. Lena requests that he take a rock, shatter the back window, and enter the house so that he may open the door when it starts to pour. Doug does this, entering and opening the door for her. She offers him a beer and encourages him to join her for a drink. As soon as the two get to talking, she mentions that he has a cut. He hears her seductively promise that he will survive as she begins to clean. Lena doesn't seem to be fazed and tells Doug to try again and kiss her properly the next time. Doug then kisses Lena and apologizes for the poor quality of the kiss. After they begin to make out, Lena begins to undress. They have sex after Doug helps her remove her clothing. They awaken in bed together the following morning. "He was good last night," Lena says, and she inquires as to whether he's ever been with a girl before. Lena lies next to him as he humorously describes their sexual encounter as his third. Going home, Doug even grinned to himself as he reflected on his time with Lena. He then goes to see his friend, who informs him that he called him the previous evening and plays a voice that is not Doug moaning. Then he introduces her to a few potential partners for sex, but Doug ignores him. Doug keeps staring at Lena for the next few days while also beginning to work out for her. Lena approaches him as he is working on the boat and says that her husband asked her to check on him. Lena asks him to close the boat's cover when they enter it and then begins to flirt with him. She begins removing her clothing once more, and they end up kissing once more, which results in intercourse. Doug notices Lena and her husband entering the pub one evening while he is working there. His friend approaches him from behind and remarks that he feels good about tonight while pointing at a few gals. The following day, while riding his bicycle past, Doug notices Elliot parked next to a shop. Lena is inside the store when he pauses and enters. The two of them then exit out the back door and engage in sexual activity, but Elliot enters the shop in search of Lena. When they stop when he approaches, Lena gives Doug a kiss before leaving. Later, Elliot tells Doug about an overlook while checking the boat he is repairing and then lectures him on why he is being so difficult. Doug reminds him of himself, he says, and he is working hard. Additionally, he declares that he is leaving town. Doug seizes the opportunity, meets Lena, and the two of them have a picnic on the bed. Lena gets a phone for him while they have a private talk. She explains to him that Elliot is a paranoid man and that talking on the phone will help. Lena and Doug dash to the kitchen, but the gardener notices them. Later, when Doug returns to the waterfront, he notices Elliot standing next to his boat. He approaches the boat with trepidation and discovers Lena is with them. Doug is then instructed to test the boat's seaworthiness by taking it out into the open. Elliot nearly is struck by a beam during the trip, but he dodges it. When Elliot asks Doug if he has a girlfriend, Doug replies that he does and claims that he was attempting to give him advice about women. Elliot enters the boat to investigate an unexpected issue with the engine. Lena takes a moment to let him know that she is thinking of divorcing Elliot. After that, he exits and requests Doug's assistance. Lena calls him later that evening in tears to inform him that Elliot raped her and that he is away on a business trip. Doug tells her she needs to call the police as he drives to the hospital, but she stops him, and they return home. Later, when he is at work, Lena calls him from the beach, where she is lounging in the sun. They end up having sex in a boat shack after she extends an invitation to him. Lena confesses to him that she is at ease with him. Then Lena tells him about her husband's first wife and how their legal dispute is still ongoing. Then, when Doug's pals ask him about his whereabouts and let him know that he is meeting someone, Doug simply ignores them. When he returns home, he notices that Elliot has returned. Then, out of the blue, he gets a call from Lena. He quickly runs to his room to contact her, and she tells him to come over right now because she needs him. Lena and Elliot got into a fight, and she managed to smack him in the head with something. Doug finds out as he gets to her house. Elliot turns revealed to be dead, and Lena tries to get Doug's assistance. Lena advises her not to put him in danger and begs him for advice. Doug then assures her that they will work things out and advises them to maintain their normal behavior. When he returns home from working at the bar, he discovers that Lena has visited his parents. After an unpleasant exchange, Doug ascends to his room. Later that evening, when he visits Lena, she apologizes for having to leave the house and heads over to his parents' residence. Lena warns Doug that the excuse won't hold water when he suggests that they may make it out to be an accident. As a result, Doug devises a new strategy. He transports Elliot's body to his boat and tells Lena that she would inform the police that they got into an argument and Elliot fled the house. A security guard spots Doug as the boat is about to leave and addresses him as Mr. Harper. But Doug impersonates Elliot and steals the boat. When investigating what appears to be an accident in the morning, the police observe officers approaching Lena's home. He observes Lena conversing with the police. Doug caused another head injury with a ship's beam before lighting the boat on fire with cigarettes and drink. Doug then goes about his daily business while serving two police officers who are discussing the event. A woman is afterwards seen driving into the town. The LA Trust is treating the situation seriously. She says when she meets with the police, Elliot had a sizable insurance fund, and because it is now going to Lena, they are looking into any possible wrongdoing. Lena is questioned about everything that transpired and whether the pair had been having extramarital affairs. As the woman continues to look into what had happened, Lena responds that she hasn't had any extramarital affairs before standing up since she finds the investigators' inquiries annoying. The guard from the waterfront informs the police that he might have a suspect from that evening since they are also looking into the case. Doug questions the security guard about the suspects as the police begin to question Doug's father, adding that he thought he had seen Elliot that night but it may have been someone else. The previous insurance agent then visits the residence to examine the crime scene. She finds the shattered window Doug left behind the evening he met Lena for the first time. When the police inquire with Doug's friend, the guy replies that Doug might be seeing a woman. Doug becomes irate at this and walks away. The agent visits Doug's house later that evening and inquires about the occasion of Lena's visit. When she says that they want to see Doug, Doug panics and tries to phone Lena, but he ends the connection when his parents get back in the car. Doug then responds to a few inquiries at the police station, where the officer inquires about Elliot's friendship with Lena. When the agent tries to pressure Doug to divulge the information, his mother steps in and refuses to let her frame her son. Lena sends Doug a note asking him to meet her in the boatyard. Lena informs her that they would need to remain apart for a while before departing. The investigator is back at Doug's house when he gets home, and she informs him that she has to take his fingerprints and a mouth swab. Doug is interrogated by the agent after being placed in the automobile, but he doesn't respond to the inquiries. Doug then tells his friend and parents about his predicament. In the meantime, the police identify a match in the agent's blood sample. Doug makes numerous unsuccessful attempts to establish his innocence. Lena is probably to blame for this. For instance, before the authorities can question the Harper's gardener who had seen Doug and Lena together, he is found dead. Doug, though, rides away on his bike. He visits the watershed and meets Lena there. Lena rips her clothing off and starts yelling at him to let her go as he approaches the scene. Trying to make it look like an attempted rape, Doug tells the police that they know him and that he needs to take action to clear his record after being arrested by the police. In order to get his hands on Lena's cell phone, he races to her motel after one policeman lets him go. However, just as he is reaching for the phone, Lena exits the room, and the agent enters. He claims that the phone contains unequivocal evidence of his innocence. Doug notes the women's similar tattoos as they leave after the second woman. Doug discovers there that the agent is actually Lena's lover and has been working with her all along. He suddenly remembers everything as he comes to terms with the fact that he was only a pawn in a much larger game. At first, it appears that Lena will abandon Doug to face the consequences. However, as a final act of love, she chooses to leave Doug the cell phone, which has the necessary exonerating evidence. The women are then seen boarding a plane and taking off after receiving Elliot's insurance payout. Doug tells how he was eventually taken to prison, though only for a brief length of time and on lesser charges. This happens right before the movie closes. Lena continues to flee with her partner. He wonders if he would repeat the entire process. The end. If you like this story, please subscribe to the channel and like it to motivate me to bring you more stories like this.